Allah says, وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. Eat and drink, but not to excess, because Allah does not love those who go to excess. And so israf is really what's prohibited. But eating, we're commanded in many verses. I mean, even though the command is for nadab or ibaha, there are many verses where Allah says, Kulu min at-tayyibat. Kulu min tayyibati ma razaqnakum. I mean, there are many verses where Allah said in Surah Al-Mulk, وَكُلُوا مِن رِزْقِهِ, So
from his sustenance.
Eat from his sustenance. So food is a great blessing. And it's also a source of communal experience. It's said that Abdul Muttalib never ate alone. And the Arabs don't like to eat alone, generally. Mauritanians are like that. Most West Africans are like that. My experience of Africans is they tend really not to... They see eating alone as something wrong with you. They'd rather not eat than eat.
North Africans, too.
And so
kind of make a joke. My wife, she's from North Africa, so come eat.
So the eating is a beautiful way for people to come together and enjoy the communal experience, and that's one of the things about Ramadan. It's a great blessing, but sharah, which is this, with a soft H, sharah, is gula. It's where you're, nehem, you have a lot of desire for food, and and a lot of people, now sociologists call it grazing. They call them food contacts. So on average, Americans are having like 17 food contacts a day. Whereas traditionally, in all traditional societies, people ate at fixed times, and they didn't. They might drink water. They didn't eat except these. But now people are always snacking.
So they actually called it grazing.
Grazing,
it seems appropriate to call it.
Well, there's a Imam Sahar Tusturi, somebody asked him, what do you say about a man who eats once a day? And he said, Akul al-Anbiya. It's the way prophecy. He said, what about twice a day? He said, Akul al-Salihin. And he said, what about 3 times a day? He said, build a trough. Just... they're like an animal,
right.
And so now people eat several times a day, and they even encourage this idea of keeping your metabolism up, so you should eat small meals several times a day. I mean, that's so. I'm sorry, I don't buy that because it's so anti-fitra to do that.
Yeah, I'm wondering. Well, not just wondering, but I know that there are a lot of people who are who are out there who struggle with food, struggle with sort of just developing the discipline. You're having the right diet and things like that, and eating the right types of thing. So
Imam al-Ghazali gives good advice, because he says that you should do it with tadrij.
Right.
Like, just do it slowly. Don't try to. What the problem with dieting is, people stop and do everything at once. He says just take one luqma, one extra morsel, and just don't eat it. If you're eating 2 pieces of toast in the morning, just start eating 1 piece of toast. Just do it slowly. The most important thing to me about diet, and I've studied it a lot, and it's been of interest to me. When I grew up, my mother was very involved in a natural diet from early on. So I grew up with that whole movement in the 60s. I mean, she was an early onsetter for that. But the most important thing is to eat good food. If you can afford it, it's better to spend more money on good food and eat less of it than on cheap food and eat a lot of it.
Exactly.
Because if you eat good food, you need less. And one of the things about a lot of people are suffering in America from malnutrition because they eat such bad food. So their cells are actually malnourished. So they're hungry all the time. It's not because they're not eating enough. It's because they're not eating enough of the right food. So if you eat good food, you're gonna eat less. And I've my wife's here, so she'll testify this. But I have for years only had 2 meals a day. Like I could not eat 3 meals a day. I would just feel sick.
Right.
And so I eat in the morning and then in the evening. And it's better to eat early if you can. Like right now it's Ramadan, so we're eating late. But a lot of 80% of our health problems in the United States are directly related to diet.
Right.
And so diet was very important in the Islamic tradition. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I mean, one of the things, Imam Malik, as you know, because you're Maliki, Imam Malik there's only a few verses about what's haram. You know, you've got Baqarah, Al-Ma'idah, and then Al-An'am, I think, is the only other one. Yeah. It's all in the cow, and then the table spread, and then Al-An'am. So they're in the appropriate named verses. But it's very simple what Allah has prohibited, you know. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كلوا من طيبات ما رزقناكم واشكروا لله إن كنتم إياه تعبدون. And then حرم عليكم الميتة والدم ولحم الخنزير وما أهل به لغير الله. And then ومن اضطر غير باغ ولا عاد فلا إثم عليه. So if you're, you know, in dire need, then you can eat what's not prohibited. But there it's just carrion, dead meat, which unfortunately most of the meat here, because they stun them, and you know, in the other verse, حرمت عليكم الميتة والدم ولحم الخنزير وما أهل وما أهل
ما أهل به.
Yeah, it's the bihi is after.
حرم عليكم الميتة والدم ولحم الخنزير ما أهل به لغير الله.
لا وما أهل لغير الله به.
ومن خنقته وما.
So the munkhaniqatu is prohibited, which is strangulation, which they do that with some animals now. And the mawqudatu is Ibn al-Arabi in his tafsir actually mentions the bunduq. The qaws al-bunduq, which is a gun basically. Stun gun, anything like that is mawquda. The mutaraddiya, like they fall off a cliff or something, and then the natiha, the gouge by another animal.
ما أكل السبع.
And then ما أكل السبع. So Allah doesn't prohibit very many things in the Quran, and then يسألونك ماذا أحل لهم, you know, they ask you what's permissible for them, and he's
أحل لهم الطيبات وما علمتم به من الجوارح.
So the طيبات are permitted, and so كلوا حلالا طيبا, you know, there's verses, eat good, and whenever it talks about food, it has طيب with it. Now obviously the dominant meaning for the fuqaha was always the source. But I think, you know, and that I think that's exactly عموم اللفظ. So it's the general statement. And obviously there's a hadith of Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiyallahu anhu, when he said to the Prophet was talking about if your food's pure, your prayer will be answered. And Mu'adh said, Ya Rasulullah, ad'u li yaj'al li mustajab ad-da'wa. And he said, atib mat'amak, you know, make your food pure, takun mustajab ad-da'wa, that you will have your prayers answered. So that's obviously financially, like where your money's from and where the source is. And I know for a fact that one of the great salihin of our age, Muhammad Zakaria, who I met, did you ever meet him in Medina? He was over 100. He was about 110 when I met him.
I've heard you speak about him a number of times.
He was amazing, man. He was from Bukhara. But his wara', you know, his scrupulousness, he would only buy from the butchers that he knew prayed 5 prayers in the masjid. You know, like they were really scrupulous about, and he was so scrupulous about his food, but he had incredible energy for ibadah. And that's one of the things, is that the exhaustion comes from food that's not halal. And there are many, you know, ya ayyuha ar-rusul kulu min at-tayyibat wa'amalu salihan. Yeah, so eat from the good things and do good things. So the energy to do good things comes from the tayyibat. Right. So
well, and it's an important part of this, because we're talking about the benefits of hunger, you know, and one of the benefits he lists is that it helps you have a clear mind. because of the stomach being empty, and so like people feel heavy.
Yeah, the Arabs say al-bitna tudhib al-fitna. A pouch will remove
your intelligence.
Filling the stomach.
Right.
And
I think it's extremely important for people just to have this concern about eating the right type of things.
I think for me, look, there's two things I would say. One, hunger. Remember, these people were really like monks that got married. I mean, when you read these books, people have to remember these were serious practitioners that were also engaged actively in what some would call like a path of sanctification. They're on the path of the saint. They really want to have wusul to God.
Yes,
Not everybody's that, and I don't like to preach that. I've seen some people do that, and I think it's unfair to a lot of people because there's a baseline, and that's why this religion is not about hunger. Hunger is beneficial, but if you're eating halal food, if you know it's halal, if you're a carpenter and your work is halal, and you're doing something really that's halal, and you buy that food and it's halal, eat as much as you want. I mean, that's the reality of it. The problem is the shubuhat in food now.